Hey everyone, I hope you're doing alright again. In today's video, I've got a couple more presets for you, but we're going to be focusing on getting hopefully a semi-convincing acoustic guitar sound out of a standard electric guitar with magnetic pickups. And we're going to need an impulse response for this. So although my videos I try to keep as free as possible, this one you're going to need the impulse response. You just can't do it without it. But it's pretty cheap. It's worth the money. I use 3 Sigma Audio's Martin D45 impulse, and you can find the link to that in the description, so check that out, or one of the other ones if you're interested. But the impulse response is really needed to try and get at least a semi-convincing acoustic sound. And what we're going for here is not to completely replace an acoustic guitar, by the way, but you know, it's never going to work in a solo context, I think. But if you're in a band and you need a quick switch to an acoustic guitar, and you know how to play your electric right to get the right sound out of these patches, I think it's gonna get the point across, and it's gonna pass that, you know, there's an acoustic guitar somewhere in the mix. But by no means is it supposed to be, you know, an exact replica of an acoustic guitar sound. But honestly, it's the best I've heard with the Helix software, and it's about as good as you're gonna get with magnetic pickups. So let's jump over to HX Edit, and I'll show you what I'm talking about. Alright, so looking at HX Edit, this is the part of the video where I show you the presets and you take the settings and use them as you like. My presets are always free, so stay tuned for more stuff in the future. But set your input impedance first if you're going to decide on this preset. Here's your compression setting for the first. You'll notice foot switch 3 here is going to change some levels. I'll show you that in a second. And I'll show you what all the foot switches for these presets are doing. Here's my IR here, Martin D45 Electric 5A. That's one of their options in the folder if you decide to get this one, or anything from 3 Sigma Audio. They give you their impulse responses, and they give you many different options for them too. So I thought 5A sounded the best for my electric guitar here, with a massive low cut and a bit of a high cut as well. Mix at 75%. I think that's really important when you're blending in impulse responses that are of an acoustic instrument. Blend in some of your dry signal there, so you're getting a bit of a natural sound from your instrument as well. It just keeps it sounding overall a little bit more realistic. Then we go into an EQ block. I'm just blowing through this, sorry, because I know this video has the potential to be very long. Here's the EQ block. Volume control that I use. Effects loop, obviously delete them if you don't use a volume or an effects loop. And then finally, a little bit of a chorus here. These are the settings, but you'll notice that the mix is set at 12% here. If you want to raise that with foot switch 1, you can raise it up to 100%. But I just leave it on all the time, and then the minimum setting is 12%, just to give it a little bit more depth. So let's give you a little sample now of this first preset. I switch to my middle pickup for the acoustic samples normally, but change around if you're using this at home on a different guitar. You know, fiddle with it a little bit and see what sounds the best for you. You'll hear there's a lot of high end in here, and in fact I've actually set the overall output of this preset a little bit lower than the rest. And one of the things that I think is most important in getting a good acoustic guitar sound is if you play the guitar really hard. So with the electric guitars, we have an element of sustain that we don't have with acoustics. You know, if you play lightly or even normally like you do, you get an overall like very sustained sound, whereas if you really hit the strings, you get a sharp attack and then it decays more like an acoustic guitar does. So I've set the volume on the acoustic patches down a little bit in relation to the rest of my presets, and that's so that you can really dig in and you get more of a drop in volume between each of the strums, like an acoustic guitar would give you. So here's a little bit of a louder sample of this. Alright, and then moving on to the second preset here, I'm going to keep moving. You've seen this preset before maybe in my wah video. Check that out if you're interested in figuring out how to make the most of the wahs in the Helix software. But I'm using an Archetype PRS Archon and then the 1x12 Deluxe cabinet for it. And that's important still, even though we're using the impulse response, because again, I'm blending in when I hit foot switch 2. This changes some parameters. And we're getting some of the amp sound through it still. So impulse response, there's the settings for that. And then here's the settings for the amp. and I've named this preset Broadway 1. This is just kind of a very generic like musical theater kind of sound that I've been using on this ship, and if I need to switch to an acoustic type sound very quickly, I just set it up to foot switch 2, and it's an instant acoustic guitar fake sound. Alright, I'll give you the dry sound of this preset, by the way. It's set up to work with some outboard distortion and stuff like I use, and that's why it's so clean. There's a little demo of the clean electric sound, and then when I hit foot switch 2, we're changing into acoustic mode again with the middle pickup. And same thing as before, a little bit lower output so you can dig in on the guitar and get that drop in volume that you get when you hit the strings hard on an acoustic. So there's that one. And then Broadway 2, I was actually going for a nylon guitar type sound, and that's not what I got, but it yielded a cool different variation on an acoustic guitar tone. Again, I set up everything to foot switch 1 actually in this case. So this is changing some amp parameters, it's changing some of the level here, and it's also unbypassing the impulse response. I'll go through on each of the presets, by the way, and I'll show you all the intricate workings very quickly at the end of this. But just the dry electric tone, this is the same as before. Going into acoustic mode. I think relatively I have a little bit less of the impulse response blended in there as some of the other presets, but I think it sounds cool. It's an interesting sound. There's plenty of high-end content there that an acoustic guitar would have. So there's that sound, again with the chorus setting here. And actually that's not affected. Oh, it's bypassed by foot switch 1 as well. So let's back up to the first preset and I'll show you all the intricate workings of the foot switches. Hopefully by now you've decided, either by exiting the video entirely or just leaving a rude comment, that you don't like the sound of the acoustic guitars. But if you're still here, here's all the information you need to do to copy this at home. Again, compression settings for the first preset, we're back at E acoustic. This is the first one I showed you, the impulse response there. Second EQ block. These are irrelevant. And then the chorus, foot switch 1 is changing here, and then I'll run through these very quickly. So foot switch 3 here, I've had it set up with the compression, which is always on, by the way, and this gives you a little bit of a boost if you need to in case of solos. So foot switch 3 on all my presets is always a boost. Foot switch 2 is bypassing the EQ here. It gives you two different options, tonal options. So here's with the EQ on, then off. Maybe you like one of those better than the other, or maybe you get to a venue and your sound isn't working for some reason. It's just not working with the room, so there's a second option for you to click on real quick. Foot switch 1, instead of controlling the bypass of the chorus, actually, by the way, I mentioned this earlier, but it's set to control the minimum mix with it off, and then maximum with it engaged. Goes from 12% to 100%. So that's basically adding in an actual chorus sound at 100%, and 12% is just adding a little bit of warmth to the sound, a little bit of movement. I think it gives a more convincing acoustic guitar sound. Moving on to the second preset, Broadway 1. Let's look at everything here. There's the wah stuff, and again, if you want more information on what I'm doing with the wah blocks, go and check out a video from a month or so ago now. There's how we blend it back together. So normally it's just bypass completely, and I've actually only added the bypass function here so that we get a pink color on the foot switch. But anyway, there's the amp settings and the cabinet. Whoops. Volume effects loop, might not matter to you. And then the chorus, and we'll look over here. Some controls for the cabinet. This is to go along with the solo boost. Foot switch 5 is changing some parameters in the amp to work better with the wah block. Foot switch 3, adding more mids again for the boost. Bypass for the chorus on foot switch 1. Foot switch 5 is a bypass for the wah, which also bypasses the volume control so that we don't have the expression controlling volume and wah at the same time. There you go. And then the impulse response. Sorry, I know this is going very fast. And then we'll move to the final preset, Broadway 2. And let's look at all the settings for each of the blocks. The amp, there's the settings, and the cabinet, and then the impulse response. Compression, blend it back together. Finally the chorus, and then we'll switch to the controls here. Level for the solo boost. Foot switch 1 is changing some stuff here. This is where we engage the acoustic sound, so it's actually changing some amp parameters as well. Here's all the foot switch 1 stuff. Basically, I've set it up so foot switch 1 is an instant acoustic mode button. And then foot switch 2 is going to change some parameters in the amp for different drive options. Maybe I'll do a video on some of these Broadway style presets later at some point, but I don't imagine it's going to be very interesting to a lot of people, so I might just wait a little bit on that. So there you go, there's the 3 acoustic presets. I hope you all enjoyed that video. Take those presets, use them as you will, and remember, I'm not trying to completely imitate a real acoustic guitar, but this is about as good as you're going to get with an electric guitar with magnetic pickups. This is about as far as you can get, and in a band context, really, I think it's going to work for you. And I've been using it even in the production shows on board here, and no one said anything. No one said, hey, your guitar sounds like shit, and you should change it, so I see no reason to change it. And always, I'll keep improving it as I can. If you're interested in picking up my amp library, everything all together, one package, you can find information in the description. It's just donation based, so donation of any amount. Most people go with $5 or whatever they feel is worth it to them. You'll get instant access to my ever-expanding preset library. And if for some reason I feel like I need to make an adjustment to improve these presets in any way, 5 years down the road or something, you can check back and you'll have an updated file, as always. So thanks for watching. Remember to subscribe and stay tuned for more Helix videos. I'll see you next time.